Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Inside D2Football. We have most of the crew here tonight, along with Matt Witwicky, Tony Nicolette, and Chris Ferguson. I am Chuck Bittner. The coach, Justin Palizzi, most likely will not be joining this evening. Justin actually has some business in Indianapolis this week. He is going to be at NCAA HQ tomorrow. Got a full day lined up there. And he is actually in the city tonight. Went to see the Colts this evening. He actually was able to go see that exciting UIndy and Ashland game yesterday. So we will not see Justin tonight, but for good reasons. And we'll hope to see him back here next week. Although he will not be with us, guys, we have no shortage of things to cover. We had a lot of really exciting games, a lot of really interesting results, several that really made the top 25 difficult to do. Now, our top 25 won't come out until tomorrow. I did mine a little bit earlier. I just kind of always do a mock dry run at that. And man, it was tough. There were so many games that if they had gone the other way, it probably would have made the top 25 really, really easy to do. Man, it was quite a challenge this week. So with that said, Whit, why don't we just get right to it? And we're going to start with a couple of the premier games. Of course, I think everyone would have had this as their game of the week. We had Grand Valley going down to Pittsburgh State in the jungle. Beautiful evening, fantastic looking weather, huge crowd, two great teams. And at the end, a 3-point game. Whit, I know we have some highlights to roll, but man, a few comments you want to make before we roll the clip and then kind of walk us through it.
I think we all kind of felt this was a coin flip ball game, and that maybe Pitt State gets a little bit of the nod being at home, having a few, very contested games coming in and who they played and so forth. But that Grand Valley's offense was going to be something to take a look at coming into the way they looked so far this season. And we go ahead and we get into the action early, and real tight through a quarter. Then in the Wildcat game, Luke Nigaman goes ahead and gets a nice gain, and Pitt State likes to bring in him. He's essentially an old quarterback, but he's playing tight end, and he does a nice job of plays like that. And then we've got a booming 53-yard field goal from Austin Schmidt, 3-0, and we're late in the first half at this point. And Andrew Schuster was having some troubles here in this contest. Just one of those things where going and playing at Pitt State as a freshman is a tough ask. And then we've got a nice tunnel screen here by Pitt. They go up 10-0 just before halftime, and it felt like it was more Pitt than Grand Valley at that point. Now Pitt kind of going in for the kill. Luke Nigaman on another, Wildcat, and all of a sudden this game kind of flips on a fumble here. Grand Valley gets themselves a touchdown at a spot where it looked like they were going to go down 17-0, and they really hadn't had a lot of offense up until that point. Finished with only 206 yards on the day, but it gave them life in a contest where I felt like Pitt kind of had them. And then you see right here they're able to go ahead and get some nice chunk yards as they now have a little bit of air in their balloon. And all of a sudden, a few plays later, they score a touchdown and find themselves up 14-10 in this game. And Chuck, I thought for a moment, they're going to pull this one out and kind of steal one a little bit on the road. But shortly thereafter, Pitt's able to score, and that ends up being the end of the game there, essentially the end of the line, 17-14 Pitt. Neither team looked great offensively, but you know what? I thought the defenses had a whole heck of a lot to do with that. And we had a few matchups this week, guys, involving what we consider to be some of the better teams in Division II. And I think that we saw some of the defenses really kind of keep the offenses in a bad spot. Tony, you were boots on the ground there at the game, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of show our audience a little bit of you were doing the walk around, and you got a chance to see that place from all angles. Kind of what was your take leaving that yard?
Well, the first thing that I want to say is that Chuck left one key adjective to describe the weather out of his description, and that is the word hot. Very hot. There was a lot of electrolyte replenishment going on down there in Pittsburgh yesterday. And I want to thank Dan Wilkes and the staff for having me down to the game. It was great, tons of fun. Being able to see one of the more better known home joints in Division II was just great. What I would say, Whit, I think your encapsulation is relatively accurate. Both of the defenses proved that they were a little bit ahead of where the offenses were. And I think we talked last week that one of the concerns that we would have had from a Grand Valley perspective is that the back end of their defense really didn't look so great through the first couple of weeks. And while they gave up a few things in this game, they looked a lot more organized and a lot better prepared. And so I would say end to end, Grand Valley's defense really did actually play a pretty good ball game. But we also expressed some concern over Grand Valley's offensive line, just over 2 yards of rush again for the second straight week. Special teams, Grand Valley had another kick blocked in this game. And penalties, Grand Valley had 10 penalties in each of the first 2 weeks, and they had 14 in this one. And on 5 separate instances, Grand Valley had Pitt in either a third or fourth and short and got caught jumping off sides that gave a Pitt a first down. That's the kind of stuff that it just looked like Pitt State was maybe a few weeks ahead, because both teams are dealing with a lot of roster turnover from key guys that were on the team last year. And so there was some portal stuff and some young guys playing and a lot of inexperience at certain points. And I think one of the key differences in this game was Pitt State, again, just looked like they might be a couple of weeks ahead in that progression. And I thought Jackson Berry played a really nice ball game for them. He looked like a senior. He was composed. He took a lot of checkdowns in this game. Sometimes it kept drives alive. Sometimes it didn't. But then they would punt and play field position from there. I thought the play and the composure that he showed throughout the game was a thing that probably won't get talked about a lot because his stat line wasn't anything overwhelming. But I thought he kind of ran the game really well for Pitt State and was a big difference maker for him.
Chuck, we didn't talk real favorably about the Pitt State offense a year ago. When you watch a game like this, while it wasn't a real glowing performance, do you still feel like they've taken a positive step forward on that side of the football?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And a big part of it is where Tony just ended on his description, which is that Jackson Berry's a real difference maker in that offense. I think he's a very efficient player. I think he brings a lot of intangibles that you need from the quarterback position as well. He really shows that good leadership, the poise. That was really crucial in this game, because I'll be honest with you, Whit, you and I were talking when that play happened, when they're down on the goal line. And, if they score in that position where, they're been fumbled and it goes back the other way, if they score, the game's over. Grand Valley did not have 3 scoring drives in them. There's just no way. And the fact that they put the ball on the deck and it goes all the way back, you have that 14-point swing. And then Grand Valley capitalizes by adding their best offensive drive to finish with points and take the lead for the first time today. I thought the game was over. I did not think Pitt would respond to that, and they did. And that was really a huge moment for this team, not only to go win this game, but for the trajectory of their season. I think that was a huge, huge moment. And for that offense to go make a drive and go win this game, very, very impressive that they were able to do that.
Ferg, we had more folks on the Grand Valley side than the Pitt side coming into this one. Do you think that this kind of keeps Pitt's playoff hopes alive, or do you think that they still have such a tough slate to go in the MIAA? What are your thoughts as you look at this?
Well, Pitt kind of reminds me of a couple of years ago, when Delta State had this really crazy schedule, and I recall they went 6-4 or something like that, and if they had a couple of more manageable games and not be so aspirational, then, they probably were going to be a playoff team. And I think that's kind of where Pitt finds himself this year. When you just look at, the rest of the MIAA schedule in particular, I mean, there's some heavyweights to still play. So, their playoff hopes are still going to be alive just because they're going to get the benefit of strength of schedule. But, they got to survive it now. And the defense takes you pretty far, but at some point you got to put points on the board.
Yep. All right. Well, Whit, let's take a look at the other, probably the one that we thought was the biggest high-profile game of the weekend. That unfortunately, both of them kicked off at exactly the same time. But you had Minnesota State going to Duluth. I think 17-14 is exactly the final score that it should have had in this game.
Right.
Man, it was a fun one to watch, though. It looked like a lot of what we would expect. It was very physical, extremely hard fought. Let's roll the clip and talk us through it.
Yeah, so we've got a little bit early, just same kind of situation, Chuck, where both teams, a lot of a feeling out process in that first quarter. UMD was driving the football. They were just not real productive when they got near the goal. And all of a sudden here, the Mavs find themselves up 7-3 just before half, when it kind of felt like Duluth had been the better ball club for a decent portion of the game. And obviously the yardage bared that out too. But you can see nice interception here, and all of a sudden Duluth's got the ball in a real good spot and looking to go ahead and kind of cash this in, take the lead. And, you go ahead and you see here, just there's some really smash mouth football being played here. A very physical game. Neither team was able to establish their run a whole lot. And then you see under duress here, while Jasper lets one go, probably would have liked to have that one back, just kind of floated it on up, hoping this guy can make a play. And the Mavs kind of get off the hook again. Kyle Walljasper, the quarterback, when he gets in trouble, some things like this happen. And you think that he's going to go ahead and run somebody over in that case. And he's a little more athletic than maybe people realize, but it only leads to a field goal. So, you look here and it's still 7-6 Mavs. And as we move towards the end of the game, Jacob Eggert comes in at quarterback. Walljasper had taken some pretty good hits, gets a nice touchdown run there, and then the 2-point conversion. And we got a 14-all game early in the fourth. Sims escapes the rush, and their defenders kind of run into each other. And Trayshawn Watson isn't the kind of guy you want to leave that open down the field. And the Mavs go ahead, and it kind of feels like, or I should say, this is, I'm sorry, the opposite order of the highlight here. You can see at 14-all, look at here, they've got their tight end, Luke Deneke, had a day. He had 11 catches for 141 yards, gets him inside the 30 there, and all of a sudden they're able to cash in on the field goal. And actually, the first time they ran the play, it got blocked, but the Mavs called a timeout right as it was happening. And then Duluth gets the kick again and makes it, and everybody goes crazy. And they had a great crowd for this one in a 17-14 game. In the Mankato Kryptonite, the Duluth Bulldogs win their third straight against the Mavs. Ferg, in Hoffner we trust. What happened, Ferg?
Well, I mean, it's hard when you can't get that running game going. And Duluth, looking at these stats, man, Duluth had the ball for 43 minutes in this game.
Right.
I mean, that is incredible. That is really tough to withstand. But,
Right.
The point that you made about the running game really makes sense here because, when you get inside that 20 and teams can't establish the running game, they end up settling for field goals. And so the score is a lot tighter than what it really truly felt like, with
Can be
having to set for field goals. So, I mean, yeah, it's kryptonite, all right. I was hoping that they would sort of break that streak, but it didn't happen.
Tony, I recall last week you picked Duluth, and you kind of alluded to it. It was almost like they've got a kryptonite here with Mankato, and it happened again.
Yeah, and I tell you, the thing that was most impressive to me about this is, and I think in the Northern Sun, that's kind of one of those things that you have to have is just a certain level of grit, because it just seems like from week to week, and we'll talk about this later in the show, how it seems like somebody gets a great win, and then the next week they go out and you just look at what they do and you're just kind of like, all right, what did I miss? So, it's really easy to get down and have stuff not go your way. And I think for Duluth, if you look at how they scratched and clawed after being behind for the latter part of the second quarter, all of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter, they've basically been behind for a big chunk of the game. They finally get themselves back to where they're up, because they go from 7-6 down to 14-7 up. And one play later, it's a tie ball game. And that could have been a lot of teams that
Right.
shell shock, and then they run out of gas from there. For them to stay on course and be able to get that ball back and get that game winner at the end and have, the confidence and the will to be able to continue to move the ball, even though things weren't working out well for Wall-Jazz, for taking hits and whatever else. I just thought the grit they showed to be able to come back from that sucker punch that they took, or haymaker, and still get the win, I thought was great.
Chuck, it feels like if Mankato cannot establish the run, they're a team that's at risk. Backer under 50 yards. The quarterbacks weren't really able to get the run game going a whole lot. It just doesn't feel like that's Mankato football anymore if they get taken out of that.
Well, sure. I mean, that's a big part of their identity, right? And the problem is that Duluth is a really tough team to establish a run against. They are a very physical defensive football team. They have been for a long time. I think the Mavs are going to be okay, though, Whit. I mean, this is such a difficult league to get through unscathed. Now, we'll see. Duluth probably has their toughest test behind them. Now they go to Sioux Falls this weekend. We'll talk about that coming up. That's probably, as things stand today, that's probably the toughest game that they have left. Although, I mean, Moorhead got them last year, so, who knows? That could be a trap game for them again this year. But there could be something else that comes up down the road. But I mean, this league extremely well, but it's a very difficult league to get through without taking a loss. So your Duluth wins kind of the first in the round robin of some big games that we're going to see over the next several weeks in the NSIC. But things are not all lost for Minnesota State. They're still in a very good spot here. But yeah, they have to be able to establish the run to win these kind of games. So really, it's something to think about for down the road when we get to the playoff part of the season.
And making the top 25 that I will be doing later tonight, Chuck, all the more complicated when I get to look to it. I took a look at it, Chuck, for about 20 seconds. I threw it away, pushed it away from me, and I said, I'll look at that later.
All right. Well, I don't think that we thought we would talk about this game, guys. Obviously Tiffin is a quality team, quality opponent, but, we've seen what Ferris has done with quality opponents over the years. We'll see when we roll the tape here. I don't think Ferris was ever really in trouble in this game. I mean, there were large points where they had a 3-touchdown lead, so They were never really in trouble. But by the time it got to the end, I mean, Tiffin had really made them work for it.
I think they got put on warning for the fourth quarter, but that was about as deep as it got. Let's go ahead and see a little bit of the action here as Tiffin actually gets out early on the scoreboard and is up 7-0. That's actually happened to Ferris a few times this year now. And, we talk about all the different things that you have to worry about with Ferris, with kind of the pseudo option game, the quarterback run. And then we just do the halfback pass, of course, because we can. And, you see a little bit of everything with Ferris here. At that point, Tiffin's got to come on up and attack the ball carrier a little bit better on that play. But you see, the next version of Trinidad Chambliss, Wyatt Bauer, goes ahead and escapes for a long score. And Ferris got out pretty comfortably in this football game. Kind of felt like they were going to go run away in it. And I didn't think that Tiffin blinked. I thought that they kind of stuck around here. And, see Ronald Blackman, one of the best, running backs at our level. And two-score game, and Ferris is going for a field goal there, making a 3-score game. And all of a sudden, this happens. And this kind of changed the temperature a little bit in this one, where, end of the third quarter, and all of a sudden you got a 1-score ball game. Well, Ferris in Ferris fashion decides that we're going to go ahead and pound the rock a little bit. But, once again, Tiffin does not go away. And this is one that, as Chuck alluded to, we didn't see, not a lot of teams that are going to go into Ferris and play them this closely. And Chuck, we didn't have Tiffin ranked. I find myself in a peculiar situation. It's kind of like I feel like even though they lost, maybe they should be ranked. And I'm not even sure what I think about that. But, Ferris at the end of the day has over 500 yards of offense. But it does bring up the question is, when we take a look at the end of last year with the Slippery Rock game, and you take a look at what Tiffin did here, which felt similar in some ways, does this mean Ferg is shaking his head? Yes, I think Ferg is ready. Ferg, does this mean that this Ferris team's a little bit vulnerable?
Yeah, in the passing game, yeah, if the opponent can effectively pass the ball, I mean, they're gonna. It's like Ferris is gonna shut down the run. Like they're gonna limit what you can get in the run.
Right.
But they are definitely very vulnerable because you had the same thought I had. I actually went and looked at what exactly Slippery Rock did, and that's exactly what they did. They took the same playbook there, and it's for Tiffin though, it's like they need to slow down Ferris, and that's a really big ask of really any defense. So if they could have stayed ahead, that'd have been great. But yeah, that passing game and the way that Alex Johnson was able to get the ball down the field when necessary really shows where I would say Ferris would need to shore up as they go down the stretch.
Tony, when we look at this, even though Tiffin was able to give them a bit of a scare in the fourth quarter, it feels like this offense for Ferris, it's just kind of another day at the office for them, and they've been able to really almost not miss a beat from what they were doing last year.
Yeah, well, and you and I have talked about this on a few of the Gleak shows. I mean, that all starts with Jarvis Wyndham and the Anderson brothers on that offensive line. So, sure. I mean, the reality is elite teams at this level are able to win in the trenches consistently, particularly in December. And as of right now, they had enough starters and enough experienced guys back where that offensive line really is basically taking a next step forward. It's not really retooling. And so they have an immediate advantage over just about anybody they're going to step on the field against. You saw that against Pitt State, and you definitely saw it in the early going against Tiffin the other night. And so I think, while I grant what you guys are saying, that the back end for Ferris does have the appearance of being leaky at times, because those were a couple of big plays that Tiffin popped on them. And Johnson threw for 294 in that game. Jackson Berry, 340. 340. Jackson Berry threw for 294 2 weeks ago. So at least statistically, they're showing a little bit of vulnerability. Now, the flip side of that is a lot of that's happening after they've got that 35-14 lead. So it's hard to say, is that something that teams really can take advantage of just because they're going to be typically doing that from behind after they've been physically dominated in the early going, and Ferris has hit him in the mouth already. I've watched them so closely for so long that I don't think I'm as far into Ferg's neck of the woods as far as that's a vulnerability just yet. Somebody's going to have to do it and find a way to beat them. And I think part of the only part of that equation that seems to usually figure into it is, does Ferris make a bunch of mistakes? It's so funny. Like last week against Lake Erie, that game was never a game, but Ferris put the ball on deck 4 times. They don't seem to do it when it's against teams that have their attention. That's the funny thing. Ferris has got that ability because they're so good up front that they can kind of play with their food a little bit, and they almost always get away with it.
Chuck, on the Tiffin side of things, you come away with a setback here, but boy, you sure play a team tough, and you're within 7 points. Do you now look at this and take a look at the remainder of your regular season schedule and say, hey guys, you see what we can do here? There's no reason that we shouldn't be able to just go ahead and kind of run the table in the GMAC.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting situation where a result that ends up a loss can still be a real confidence builder. And I don't know that Tiffin needed a confidence builder going into like their conference. Of course, we know that they can compete for the GMAC title. They're regularly up there at the top. So it's not like they needed something to prove to themselves or anybody else that they can win their conference. We already knew that, but certainly it's something that can inspire them to really see what their ceiling can be. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. And we talked about this with Slippery Rock last year too, how much respect they earned actually in a loss. So maybe the same is true here for Tiffin, and with the rest of the season in front of them. Maybe it is an opportunity for them to really capitalize on, a good performance and some respect that's earned. But we'll see. There's also a lot of stuff that's on film from that as well that all the rest of the GMAC coaches will be taking a look at. So, it would have been great for them to see if they could win this game. But the reality is for them, the biggest games they're going to play are Findlay and Ashland. later on down the road. Now, it may be a Northwood too, because they're having
yeah. I was waiting for that.
there's still some games out there for them to play. So, the tricky thing is they have to move on from this and get prepared for those games, because the actual reality is those are more important than this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and before we move on to our next game, our guy Chip mentioned here, obviously Ferris, punch first, but this is what I give Tiffin credit for, is they punch back.
I agree.
In a way where not many teams do at their place in those moments. So I give them a lot of credit for that.
Yep.
Chuck, let's move on to our fourth contest that we're going to take a look at, and I'll let you kind of take it from there, buddy.
Yeah, well, we don't have some highlights in this one, but we're still going to talk about it, and it might be natural to ask, well, why are we going to talk about it? Well, of course, we had a top 15 that lost, so that's noteworthy. So, Chris, I think when we look at this on the surface, the story is Virginia Union lost, and who is this team that they lost to? Maybe we don't know about them. I don't think that would be fair to Edward Waters. I think that really is the story here, because they're playing some pretty good football, and they've already got some pretty impressive wins on the board.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that, not long before the season began, there was a coaching change where Toriano Morgan went to Tennessee State, and who do they bring in? None other than Brian Jenkins, who coached some really good Bethune-Cookman teams in the FCS, and so he's been in Florida for some time and knows how to recruit and things like that, knows how to coach, and what he did, he also brought in Southern's former coach as well as one of his assistant coaches, and so they got some talent on that sideline, and kind of what they did here with Edward Waters is this game. You talk about a fourth quarter. I mean, it was explosive. I mean, they went to the fourth quarter with Edward Waters leading 31-17. And you just saw all kinds of things just happening. Long pass plays, a kick return for a touchdown, a fumble recovery for a touchdown, scoop and score. I mean, a little bit of everything just sort of happened. But, Edward Waters, they exposed, again, we just talked about secondaries. And unlike, what Tony described for Ferris, that didn't happen. Edward Waters went to the skies, and if it wasn't maybe for a couple more overthrown balls, I mean, the wide receivers were just getting behind that secondary. And I think you just see the effect of the transfer portal, what it's done to VUU on that back end. And so, here, just an incredible feat by Edward Waters. They've gotten by Savannah State, who people thought were going to be in the top half of the SIC, and then Miles, who, I think is going to have a down year this year. But, this one is a huge feather in their cap to pull off a game that I think a lot of people had kind of written them off for.
Ferg, let me ask you this. If we're going to kind of measure up and look at who are the top 5 D2 HBCU squads right now, not to put you on the spot, but it kind of sounds like I'm putting you on the spot. Is Edward Waters at the top of that list, or would you have them ahead of Johnson C. Smith? What are your thoughts at this point?
I don't know if I'm ready to have them ahead of JCSU at this point. I think you also have to think about it in their own conference. You got Albany State, who played really tough against FAMU yesterday, lost by single digits. And Virginia State's playing really well also. I think you got those 3 teams. You got Edward Waters, and then that 5th spot.
We waiting on K-Ferg to try to come back there. You got him. I think we'll need
Ferg, we have you paused. It looks like you're blowing kisses right now.
I'm probably going to be, that's another one that.
Man, think of all the great intel that we just missed out on there.
I know.
Ferg, I think that you were buffering on us there for a moment. We're going to let you unpack that when you return, my friend.
No worries. I'll tell you what. We'll just we'll pull Chris out of the studio. Make sure he did. He's probably still going. Maybe he doesn't realize that we lost him. There's probably giving us all kinds of great intel. Whit, you were going to get the full download on the state of HBCU football.
Well, it was going to help me make my picks, but now that's gone. So yeah,
well, yeah, maybe this is partially intentional, but
he's been waiting for an open mic night to do his Max Headroom impression for years, and we didn't tell him that it was tonight. So,
okay. So it looks like Ferg's making a comeback. Ferg, give me a thumbs up if you are ready, or if you're not ready just yet. Ferg, so we've figured out that your friend Steve Gaither has sabotaged your Wi-Fi or something because you were giving away all the secrets for your Wednesday show with him. Is there any truth to this?
Oh man,
where's Gaither in the comments when we need him?
Oh man, don't worry, he'll have a whole lot more to talk about then. Yeah, I was saying that number 5 probably will be someone like Clark Atlanta in that group. But I tell you, man, the SIC has really stepped up this year, and that's going to be a slog as they go through the conference season now.
Well, and what's interesting is we've got folks talking about their logo. Let's be honest. We haven't exactly had their logo on our show a whole lot since we've kind of rolled out Inside D2 Football. So kudos to them. Anytime we are talking about a football team that is on one of our box scores to start the show, that's a notch that you guys have gotten the program to a certain spot where we're discussing it like that. So kudos to Edward Waters.
Yeah, absolutely. Good result for them. It'd be interesting to see where the rest of their season goes. So that's kind of wrapped the kind of the premier games segment of the show. But guys, we still have a lot to go through that happened over the weekend, and actually started on Thursday night. We had CSU Pueblo going to Central Missouri. This game started on Thursday night. I think it ended on Saturday morning.
I have firsthand vouch for that.
This was a pretty long game. You can see the final there. Pueblo does pull this out. We also did want to spotlight Jack Pospisil, the wide receiver for Central Missouri. Huge night for him. School record for receiving yards in a single game, 252 yards for him. If he had 254, they would have won the game. But what a huge night for Jack and for the Mules. Tony, I know you were there. Whit, you were also watching. Anything more you guys want to say on this one before we move on?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's those couple of yards that he just couldn't get at the end that kind of seemed to make the difference. But I think UCM had their chances in this game. You know, there were a couple of us that picked them to win this game. And I got to give a nod to Pueblo. Obviously, they didn't have Reggie Retzlaff. Marcellus Honeycutt got knocked out early. So, I mean, their receiving core got consistently more and more depleted as the game went on. But UCM had like 570 some odd yards of offense in this game. That they had 5 trips inside of Pueblo's 30-yard line that resulted in no points. So if UCM's going to have a chance of being, a part of the conversation at the end of the season in MIAA, they got to finish drives. And, they're still trying to work things in with a young quarterback. Donovan Romolo had a pretty decent game, but ended up giving way, in the fourth quarter to Jordan Pachot. And he's the one who led their scoring drive to get back into the game and had them down inside the 5 in the last minute with a shot to win the game, and they just couldn't get it. They just couldn't get it done.
Yeah, and kind of interestingly, I thought, okay, now's when you need to go back to Amaro, a quarterback, because that situation down on the goal line is perfect.
I was actually thinking that I was actually standing under the goalpost that they were going toward during that last series, and I was thinking the same thing. Like, boy, this would be a good time to run the ball, actually.
Yeah. And between our guy Tony and Mike Racy, lots of camera time. That
is true. Yeah.
That didn't take the camera found you guys in a hurry, but
it didn't break. That's the story.
Well, I kept walking away from this thinking, Chuck, I was thinking that they maybe should have tried the quarterback thing a little earlier. I was thinking that before halftime, because I kind of felt like they needed someone who could sling it a little bit more like I thought they wanted to in that offense. And it kind of felt like some of the lift they got was a little bit late. But at the same time, I mean, neither team played a real clean football game, but one of them had to win, and Pueblo comes out with a big win on the road at that point.
Yep.
And I thought in the game where they kind of had to have it, considering the season that we were anticipating that they might have.
Yep. Yeah, it was pretty impressive that they were able to pull that out on the road on a short week. So, all right, on to a next one. Actually, our guy Justin was at this game. This was a top 25 matchup. We had Ashland coming off the huge win over IUP, going to Indianapolis. And, Ashland, guys, they had them. They had a 2-score lead late in this game. Indy rallied to make a drive, and then the turnover that really changed the game. Ashland, unfortunately, threw an interception on their side of the field, set up a short field for Indy. And I was talking with Justin earlier today about the game. There were, a couple things that stood out to him. If that turnover doesn't happen and you force Indy to drive the field, it's just a whole different situation because Ashland's defense had played so well all day. On the defensive side of the ball, one of the things that Justin really observed was he really felt that Ashland's size and physicality was such a difference maker. I think they had 8 sacks in the game. And when you can unsettle a really good quarterback like Gavin Sukup with your pass rush, and Ashland's good at doing a pass rush without even blitzing, that just gives you so many options. And they were really able to do that defensively. But Justin really felt that on the other side of the ball, Ashland had a size advantage that they just were not really able to take advantage of. And I kind of noticed last week that Indy had a size disadvantage to Findlay. It was really kind of the same this week against Ashland, but the Eagles just weren't really able to take advantage of that. And unfortunately, they let the Greyhounds hang around. And huge credit to them when you're behind 12 or 13 points in the fourth quarter against a quality team like Ashland and find a way to get it done. It's a huge win for them. If they had dropped this game, you go to 1-2. They're still out of conference, but man, it just makes the rest of your season look a whole lot different. So pulling this out was a huge win for the Greyhounds at home. And this was actually one that I didn't know was going to turn into the barn burner that it did. So this was last night at Slippery Rock. Of course, Shepherd, we know that the recent history that they've had, but I didn't feel that they were really there yet to challenge in this game. They had a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter at Slippery Rock, and it really wasn't looking good for the Rock. This is another team that made a late quarterback change. And to your point, Whit, about UCM making that change, and maybe it was a little too late. I thought Slippery Rock made the change a little bit too late. Turns out they didn't, because all they needed was 2 drives in the last 5 minutes to be able to tie the game, got it into overtime, and then they got away with the win in OT. So great win. Slippery Rock's won something like over 30 in a row when they kick off at 6 o'clock or later at home. It's a very, very difficult assignment to play a night game there. So a great win for them. But, this might be one of those situations where they come out of this win maybe with more questions than answers. And I think we could probably say that about quite a few teams. So we'll see what they do at the quarterback position going forward.
Well, Chuck, I think that's what I'm going to be watching is does DeJuan Owens end up he's more that dual threat guy. Do they try and make a subtle change that way? And, Sean Lutz said after the game, we need to get better. And I think that he realizes they are not where they were last year at this point. And they're going to have a few weeks here to kind of start to figure that out before they fully jump into everything. But when you can survive a game like this where you're in a real bad spot, that's a good sign for the Rock.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just another sign of the depth of their program. All right. Back to the GMAC and the GLIAC. Man, this was Tony. What was the score of this game last year? Like 10-7, I think.
10-7. Northwood won, as evidenced by the light blue handle on the axe there in the lower right. The team that holds the axe paints the handle.
I think you said last year there aren't enough trophy games in D2. Well, this is one of them.
Yeah,
normally, when we see a large screaming man holding an axe over his head, that would be alarming. But in this case, it's something to celebrate. Northwood even did a bit this morning where Coach Bauer was shaving with the axe.
I suppose for Saginaw, this image still is alarming, but that's all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe I'm getting a dig in. I shouldn't, but you know.
So, but Tony, before we move on from this, obviously old Gleak rivals, but these two teams are still rivals. They're geographically they're pretty close together. So this is a big win for Northwood, isn't it?
It is, and there's a lot to kind of unpack with this. I'll do it as quick as I can. So you're looking at a Northwood team that gave up almost 400 yards a week ago and still managed to eke out a win over Northern Michigan. So Northern Michigan has had a couple of rough years, and they still move the ball on Northwood. Saginaw comes into this game, and Whit and I have talked on the Gleak shows extensively about how much they brought back on that offense. Their first 6 possessions net 47 yards. And so Saginaw finished, I think, with 274 in the game, and 227 of those yards came after it was 35-0 Northwood in the middle of the third quarter. So we knew Saginaw's defense was going to have some things to figure out, but the fact that their offense has been so topsy-turvy roller coaster ineffectual through 3 games is just I don't know what to make of it. I'm just baffled. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, if we thought that last year's loss for Saginaw Valley was a big, stubbing their toe when they could have made the playoffs. This is just like a what, for them. So, credit to Northwood and what they've got going on right now. And Saginaw Valley feels like they got a little bit of the Bemidji thing going on, where what was around for last year's defense especially is not around anymore.
Yeah.
And it's, you can't just say next man up. It doesn't always work quite that way.
Yep, for sure. All right, well, let's see if we can move through some of the rest of these a little bit quicker. We had Cal surviving a really tough challenge from a good Westchester team. That was back and forth. Both teams had the lead multiple times throughout that one. Vulcans secure the W. Still haven't played on the road. I think next week is like their 10th straight home game when you factor in playoffs last year. But the Vulcans get that win. Clarion also in the PSAC West. The Golden Eagles are 3-0. I don't think we've ever had an opportunity to mention Clarion in the 5 years we've done Inside D2 Football. Clarion gets to 3-0 with a win over Shippensburg. Congrats to the Golden Eagles. I know Kerry Moyer and I both felt that they had an opportunity to do that, and it's awesome to see them pull that off. In the GSC, man, it was almost a really tough day for the GSC. We had Delta State losing at UNC Pembroke, easily the biggest win so far for Conference Carolinas in their young existence. It seems like, we talked about this yesterday. It seems like every time we start to show some confidence in Delta State, something like this happens. Yep. And they lose a game we don't think they should lose.
Yeah. It's like we want to believe in Delta State. We all like Coach Cooley, great guy, such a candid guy. But this is just a game they can't afford to lose right here, as they're kind of ascending up, just got ranked, everything else. So I'll be curious to see kind of how they do going forward after that setback.
Yeah. And then we had West Alabama pulling out late victory. They actually had to rally from a couple scores down. They were down 2 scores in the fourth quarter. I was really surprised. I will admit, I was really surprised how well Charleston matched up with them. They led almost the entire game, and West Al rallied. The game-winning score, if you haven't seen that, that's out there on the socials. Spencer Arsenault ripped off an incredible run to get down and score. It was a really long run to get the win for West Al, but another one where I think even through a loss, Charleston probably gets a little respect for how well they matched up with West Alabama.
Yeah.
Wait, let's head up to your territory. So we had Augie had to rally and hang on for dear life to beat UMary. Do I read that correctly?
17-0 UMary just before half. Augie gets on the board, and it kind of a slow going second half until late, and then Augie scores in the closing moments and ends up getting outgained substantially in this game. But they pulled one out of the fire, 21-20, and they stay unbeaten. And then you've also got Sioux Falls kind of got over the hump with Bemidji. Bemidji I don't think Sioux Falls had beaten them since like 2016 or something like that. And Bemidji is normally a very tough place to go play at, and Sioux Falls took the opening kickback for a score and kind of never looked back. It was a 42-7 game at one point, and Sioux Falls offense is very diverse, and now they're taking a step where Cam Dean does not need to be a 100-yard rusher to win games. They're throwing the ball around and they're getting more help all around. So it's an interesting matchup we'll have coming up here. But Sioux Falls also 3-0, so both of those teams move on.
All right, another 3-0. Michigan Tech still rolling. The Huskies looking really good. A lot of confidence that they're building as we approach conference play. And then we had Washita. I thought that potentially could be a very close game because we had Washita coming off the tough loss. Credit to the Tigers, a really nice rebound for them. They took out a pretty respectable Southeastern Oklahoma State team by a couple of touchdowns. So big win for the Tigers to get their first dub of the season. Man, this one was interesting. It was I think the first time I mentioned it to you, it was 21-0. And I believe it was 28-3 at the half. And the next thing I knew, Gladwin was tweeting that the game was tied. So ran back to go to Flow College and dial up that one. And it turned out that the Bears did pull this one out. But man, what a furious rally by Emery and Henry to make that one the close game that it was. But the Bears do survive and get the win. And both of these games went way later than expected. I think the Mines game pushed something like 7.5 hours in duration because of some weather delays. And Angelo State didn't end until close to 2 o'clock Eastern time. I think we got the results we expected there, guys. But Angelo State, I'm not going to push the panic button there. But even though they got the win, the offense was really underwhelming in this game. Braden Fuller did not play. We kind of expected that because he was injured last week. 147 yards of total offense for Angelo in this game. 1 of 12 passing. Not a good look. Now, they've got Western New Mexico this coming week. Should just out-talent them. And then they do have a bye week before they play Permian Basin. So they have a little bit of time to sort this out, see if Braden Fuller's able to go. But man, not a real good look for the Angelo offense last night.
Yeah. As we move on, I'm going to mention one thing here from our guy AC. Joseph Capper, the quarterback for Mines. I think he's going to be a guy that we're going to need to kind of keep an eye on. The fact that he's got a dual threat ability the way he does, and that offense seems like it's kind of ignited again. Going to be a team to watch for certain.
Here's a couple of Whit. Do you want to just give these a couple quick mentions?
Yeah, I was watching a fair amount of the Northwest game with Texas A&M Kingsville, and Northwest over 300 yards of offense at halftime, and they're kind of mixing it up. And I think that they've rebounded really nicely since that opening week at Mankato, where offense was not a great thing for them. Defensively, they went against a Javelina squad that really chucks it around the field. And Northwest, I thought, looked very good defensively, going on two weeks in a row of strong defense for them. Interesting as they kind of head on into conference play here. Then on the other side, Fort Hays, this game felt closer at half than it was. It was 17-0 Fort Hays, if I'm not mistaken, but the yardage was about the same. I think Kearney is a solid team, but they just don't have the offense, in my opinion, to hang with at the moment some of those teams in the upper half of the MIAA.
All right, and then back to the East Coast, we had Mars Hill hanging on in overtime. Lions actually had a big lead at a couple points in this game. Carson Newman was able to rally, get this one into OT, but Mars Hill does prevail. Big win for them. First win for their new head coach, Kevin Barnett, who's succeeding Tim Clifton, who was there for many years. So a great first win for him in his head coaching career. Probably knocks the Eagles out of contention for a top 25 spot for at least the next couple of weeks.
I had that same thought, Chuck.
Yeah.
Oh, and we like the Hayes game so much we have it in here twice. Beautiful. That was going to be an answer to a trivia question. I'll handle the other side of that, Chuck.
That was your John Dykstra nod because he loves Hayes so much.
Yeah, I know that Dykstra is he's a dog walker for Hayes, but
He's all happy.
the Moorhead game I watched, that was one of the early starts for me, that kicked off noon my local time, and kind of slow going early with Winona State, and then Jack Strand and company did their thing. I was impressed more that their defense was playing like it was. Side note, the Dragons did not hand off the football, do a conventional run play until late in the second quarter. Just think about that for a moment.
I don't find that surprising, actually.
I don't either, but it's still fun.
They ran a lot of plays.
Yeah.
But
all right, let's see if we can bring this to tidy conclusion. We have just a few more. Truman State, nice win for them over Davenport. This was a little bit of a back and forth one. Really well contested game. Got into overtime. Bulldogs scored first, got the PAT. Sparky McEwen went for 2 in the bottom half of that OT period. Did not get it. Probably the right call to go for it, but they did not get it. Truman State gets out of there with a big win. And I think, Whit, was this one that we had in the Pick'em last week?
it was. I am Truman, and I'm feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty good about that.
All right. Well, big win for the Bulldogs. And then we'll close it out with a couple of programs getting what for them is a pretty significant win. We had Ferrum earning their first win. K-Ferg, you got to take it. Ferrum gets their first win as a Division II program. They beat Shaw 14-6. Don't look at the box score; it's ugly. But Ferrum gets the win. Good for them. Great first win as a D2 program. And Southwest Minnesota State, first win since the end of 2023. They were 0 for last year. Happy to see them notch a win early this season. And so that kind of wraps up the review of last week. We kind of alluded to this a few times. So, Wick got a little creative there with the graphic. This definitely makes the top 25 a little bit difficult to work through. Now, we all know it's just an opinion poll. It doesn't actually mean anything, but we do put a lot of thought into this. We want to try to get it right. Whit, I know that there's probably a few teams that are going to fall out this week. What are we looking at here? Are these some of the contenders that we think might make their way into the poll if somebody comes out?
So top left portion of the graphic, and it looks like we've got Virginia's logo on there so much that it ended up being on there twice. But Virginia Union, Delta State, and Ashland all lost and were ranked 15th or worse in that top 25, meaning I think one was at like 20, the other 22-ish. They will have a real chance of maybe falling on out. But the question really becomes, if they fall on out, who are the 3 teams that come on in? Maybe Virginia Union stays. Maybe we're only talking about 2 teams. But that whole bottom level that we have from Edward Waters to Wingate to, Valdosta State, the question becomes a little bit of who then should be put in here, because I think you can make a case for a whole lot of different teams. I think it almost, just because you're 3-0 doesn't, or 2-0, doesn't automatically mean that you should be in this top 25, because it's going to have to come down to a little bit of who did you beat. Now, Chuck, as I look at this here, I got to be honest with you, I think maybe a Valdosta, maybe a Charleston, maybe even a Tiffin, who all have one setback. I think in this company, I'm going to have a hard time putting them ahead of these guys. What do you think, Chuck? As a voter, what's kind of your stance on that?
Well, Duluth's coming in for sure, right? I mean, we did not have them ranked going into last week. I think they're coming in for sure.
Yeah, they're rocketing in. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that's kind of interesting, though, and it's a week thing. So you look at a team like Sioux Falls. They're probably on the fringe. They deserve to be in there, but are they going to make the poll this week? I don't know. But remember, they play Duluth this coming week.
Right.
So that might be a spot where maybe I don't labor on it too much, because if I don't get them in this week, if they win next week, then obviously that becomes a no-brainer and they get in there. So I think if I look at some of the others, a Wingate, just because of the consistency that they've had over the last several years, I have a lot of confidence in pulling them in. Tiffin, as impressed as I am by what they did, I want to make sure that there isn't going to be a hangover there. I kind of want to see them get into the meat of their conference schedule and see them, do what they need to do there. But I'm definitely keeping an eye on them. Charleston, I mean, they're actually 1-2 at this point, so not really looking at them. And Valdosta, kind of need to see them earn their way back in at this point. So I don't know, Ferg, who are some of the teams that are kind of on your radar?
Well, I mean, outside of Duluth being the obvious, I mean, Michigan Tech looks really interesting as well. 3-0, so someone to also consider as well.
Yep.
Now, Ferg, do you think is Edward Waters and their 3-0, is it maybe as good as anybody else's 3-0 on here or better?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's definitely worth considering. I mean, just because of not just, these are not squeakers that they're getting by when they have to blow teams out. They're doing it. I mean, this is a team that's averaging over 40 points a game now. I mean, that's how potent they are. And so to me, I think the resume is definitely getting built. It's just one of those things where they don't have that name recognition. So I think, people are not looking right now, but definitely worthy of consideration.
Now, Moorhead hasn't been mentioned. They're 3-0, but okay, I'm going to be real frank here. We're looking over Southwest Minnesota State. We're looking over Northern Michigan. Teams who haven't found the pay window much in the last few years. And then, they beat Winona this last week. For me, that's not enough in terms of notches to go ahead and have a team like that ranked. Now, when you look at Edward Waters, the fact that they've beaten a ranked team like they have with Virginia Union and Duluth's win, for example, over Mankato, which obviously probably supersedes any of them we're talking about. Now, we have Findlay, for example, that Findlay beat Indy, Chuck. You had a chance to see that. And then how did Findlay do this last week? They won. They won 7-3 against Wayne State.
Wayne, yeah.
That falls into Chuck Bittner's don't look at the box score category.
Right, yeah.
That was another ugly one.
And somebody had asked me.
That's at home, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody had asked me during the week on one of our shows about Findlay, and I said, the problem is that you can win a game like that, but in some of the other games where we need to see more, we just haven't. When those two games last year where they lost by 20 apiece and the ones they had to have.
Yeah.
And then you follow up like this. I have a hard time getting behind all that. I think Wingate, Chuck, like you mentioned, is kind of a little bit of a sleeper on the page here. Now, they haven't played as many games, but there's a chance that they may be as good or better than any team in the in the SAC, and I think that we may see that. But Chuck, I'm not looking forward to doing my top 25 in an hour or so. I got a feeling it's going to feel like a big hot mess.
It probably is. So let's move on from that. We're running a little bit long tonight, so we'll see the updated top 25 when it comes out tomorrow after all the votes are tabulated. This is what it was going into the week.
Right.
Guys, we still have to do our picks, so we'll go through the games of interest and our picks. So, Whit, how about a quick snack break update before we look at what's coming this week?
Quick snack break. Well, as everyone is probably aware who's tuned in, unless you're brand new to the show, Boss's Pizza and Chicken is our sponsor, not just for the beer, but that would be easy. We also have pizza. We also have wings. We have a lot of other things that are on this menu. And if you have any interest in opening up your own Bosses, feel free to go ahead and check out their website. If you go ahead and open one up, just make sure that you put on there, hey, where you heard about all this stuff with this Bosses. But guys, I'm back with food offerings for you guys to judge. And we're going to start off with mozzarella sticks. Thumbs up, thumbs down from those on the panel.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a thumbs up.
Okay. Onion rings. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not an onion rings person.
Had some good ones last night. We should be talking about Chicken Mary's, but
I'd be feeling that. Toasted ravioli. I'm all about this.
That one, I'll go thumbs down.
Chuck, we're gonna have a talk off air about that.
Yeah.
So, Chuck, if you were picking an appetizer of those three, which one are you landing on?
Since I was very young, I've had a thing for onion rings. I've just always really liked onion rings, so I'll go that one. Go with that one.
Tony, which one would you go to?
I think I'd go with the ravioli that you're showing, just because that's a little bit more unique. That's less ubiquitous. You can't get them everywhere.
Yes. Bringing out the big words for
I
the show.
was going to say ubiquitous is a big word for this program, Tony.
I was going to say there's people
can always get
Google right now trying to
things.
type that in, but they don't know how to spell it.
Always get onion rings. Can't always get fried ravioli.
Ferg, which way are you going on this?
I'm definitely looking at this toasted ravioli. I see all the nice seasoning on there. Would pair really nice with a crisp white wine from Italy.
Ooh, all right.
Make sure you had a marinara on the side too. Thank you.
Always got to be a wine angle, but I'm with you, Ferg. I'm going here, just a little marinara, just to make it so it doesn't kind of seem too plain. I would not have guessed that this was going to win the poll tonight, but it did.
I'd like to see how these taste dipped in a little creamy Caesar.
All right, that's a different program.
Moving right along with Tony and his creamy Caesar.
Thank you to Boss's Pizza and Chicken. And thank you for always putting up with our shenanigans when we do ad reads. Let's talk about what's coming up this week. So, games of interest. What do you have for us?
So just for anyone tuning in who has not been following small college football for a long time now, games of interest mean that ones that we're going to have our eyes on, but we're not picking them. Now, we got Pueblo Mesa. I'm not going to go down the list and look at each, but I'm going to highlight Anderson is 3-0 in pretty convincing fashion. They're going on into Mars Hill. This would have been a great time to have Poe, because Poe's been pounding the table for Anderson last year. But an interesting game in my opinion. West Texas, I know they're 1-2. I know, but you know what? They're a pretty darn exciting 1-2.
They're on the come.
Yeah. And I'm curious to see if they can do a few good things at Central Wash. I think Central Wash is just too physical for them. But interesting ball game. Chuck, I'm guessing that's probably our late game on Saturday. One of those that ends at like midnight. But,
Central Wash likes to kick off at usually about 6:00 local time. That'll be a nighttime game on Flow College.
Yeah, then Upper Iowa, who I thought kind of had a surprising, positive year last year. GOVC going to Michigan Tech, who seems like they're red hot. And Ferg, looky here, Bethune-Cookman was mentioned earlier. Well, they're hosting Edward Waters, Ferg. Does Edward Waters keep this thing rolling here?
I mean, I think there's a pretty good chance that they do. I mean, remember, Bethune-Cookman lost last year to someone else in the SIC in Clark, Atlanta. So certainly very possible. I just want to mention really quick, Kentucky State had to go to overtime, and they lost in overtime to Grambling. Again, we're talking about how good the SIC has been this season so far. Yeah, that's a huge deal for us to even mention that here. So, yes, sure. I do like Edward Waters to hold their own in this game.
Well, now that we've gotten past the games of interest, this is the part of the show where, guys, once again, I am not one to toot my own horn, but
never.
Toot.
Are?
No,
when?
Heck no.
76%.
I mean, geez, take my foot off the gas. 76%, guys. I'm taking still shots of the screen because it's not going to be there very long. I know this well enough. Ferg. Good time for you to go there, Ferg. Ferg off to a red hot start at 48%. Ferg, do we need to start picking them with spreads here or something? I mean, what's going on here?
I think the games that that they're being chosen are so good that, I mean, it's coming down to like almost the last play.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about how much I fretted over Central Missouri, and it literally was two yards would have sunk me even further. Ashland, I have faith in you, Ashland, and look what you did to me. I feel like you, Tony. I can't quite peg where they are.
Well, like kryptonite, man.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah, Ferg.
these are some
I
great
know.
games.
I know. They're all nail biters, but somehow I'm getting them all right. But anyway, okay. So let's go ahead and pop right on into the games. Uh, the Harding fans, I know last year were angry with us because we weren't talking about the Bisons enough when they were playing the bottom third of their conference to start the year. But now we're going to Harding 2-0, Southern Arkansas 2-0, despite having had to replace their quarterback, Judd Barton, off to a good start this season. Who's ready to jump on out and take Southern Arkansas?
Not I, said the fly.
No, but this
No.
might be time for my annual GAC appearance. Might be a good candidate.
Southern
I'll be
Arkansas is
curious to see
Ooh,
if Southern
the folks in
Arkansas.
Magnolia, the radar just went up.
Well, I'd like to think, we talked about punching back earlier on the show. I think Southern Arkansas's offense can punch back with Harding. I don't know if they can slow down the Harding offense. The Harding offense is looking playoff-ish right now already. But I think that's one to keep a look at to see, can they go ahead and keep this close to where the second half matters and it's not over at halftime. Chuck, do you think Southern Arkansas is the kind of team that can kind of punch with Harding a bit?
I hope so, but realistically, I don't think so. I mean, Southern Arkansas is a good football team. They've been like a 9-win team, 10-win team the last couple of years. They've been in bowl games. They're a good football team, but they've just had nothing for slowing down Harding's offense. So, maybe this is the year, but I'm not real confident with.
Well, I think that means we're all going with the Bisons. Moving on into the next game, Johnson C. Smith, Virginia Union. Ferg, I'll be real frank. I thought we'd be coming into this game with Virginia Union unbeaten. But here we are. Now we've got an angry Virginia Union hosting Johnson C. Smith. This is a very good game. Ferg, I'm going to let you go last because I want to see where everybody else goes on this one. Ferg, we would normally look to the answers for you, but with 48%, that's all come into question. Chuck, which direction are you going on this?
This is a tough one, right? This can easily go either way. I got this one right last year by putting a little faith behind Johnson C. Smith. I'm going to do it again, Whit. I think they're just the better football team right now.
Okay. Tony, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm right there with Chuck on this one because, I think the thing for me is Virginia Union. It was Jada Byers last year, Curtis Allen this year. They're going to run the ball. But their defense was, I think, one of the things that maybe we overlooked, but you could always count on last year.
Fair point.
They got racked up for 423 or whatever it was, 429 the other night. And I think RJ Rosales has just not been as consistent at quarterback as I'd like to see. I think he's only 9 of 21 yesterday. So, to me, against a team that has continued to prove it can beat quality teams in Johnson C. Smith, I just think that all of a sudden for Virginia Union becomes an uphill climb, which we just haven't seen them have to have something like that other than playoff games over the last couple of years. So even though they're at home, I like the Golden Bulls.
I like Virginia Union to rebound. I still have faith that they are maybe as good as anybody on the HBCU side on D2. I really do. I'm going Virginia Union at home. Ferg, am I wrong? What do you think?
Well, the one thing to think about is, JCSU had to squeak by Elizabeth City yesterday. It was like 20-17, I think was the final score. So
right,
they lost a hangover.
Right. and also, I think the other piece is that they were playing truly on the road too, and so I think that that's a factor that I would like to see JCSU win these games, big games like this on the road. VU's got a lot to work through, but I think JCSU has been giving up enough in the passing game that gives me a little bit of pause, and I'm going to go with Virginia Union as well. I think at home, it's just a tough place to win.
Big friend of the show, Calvin. Darn right you agree with what Calvin. I like where you're going there, buddy. Moving through the games, we have got Lenore Ryan, another good game here for them. Carson Newman. Boy, those Carson Newman fans were upset with us at the start of the year that we didn't have them ranked. Kind of they played a school of, I don't know what it was. That first team that they played I had never heard of. And then since that time, they kind of had a tough one this last weekend. Lenore Ryan, can they stop the triple? I mean, how good is Carson Newman? I don't know. Chuck, how do you see this one?
Well, I'm a little troubled by the fact that LR gave up a huge lead at home last week. That's really not like them. And also very impressed that Carson Newman was able to rally the way they did at Mars Hill. So you kind of have two teams that went in diverging paths there in the second half of their football games. But ultimately, I'm going to pick LR for the same reason I picked Johnson C. Smith. I think they're just a better football team here.
Okay. Ferg, how do you think that Carson Newman can get the triple going? How do you see this one turning out?
I mean, I do, but I really do like how Lenore Ryan's offense is playing. And I'm going to go with the Bears.
Fair enough. It looks like the thought of picking this game has scared Tony out of the room. Hopefully he does return here momentarily. I am actually going to go with Carson Newman at home. I think they're ready for a bounce back game. Now, I feel this is the game that I feel least confident all so far this year in picking games. I'm only mentioning this because I'm getting 3 out of 4 right. But so I have a feeling I'm going to turn back to this game and be angry about it. But it is what it is. Tony said that he has something come on up in our software and is out of there right now. So we will, if Tony is able to make it back, we'll get his pick on that. We're going to move forward with the games until that point. Fort Hays, Pitt State. What is this? The Pitt State show? I mean, we have them on every week, but they're in a huge game every week.
They certainly have been, Whit. Man, this is a tough call, isn't it? I think you've got, Pitt coming off that huge win. All of a sudden, they have a whole bunch of momentum. I know it's just one game, it's just 1 week, but all of a sudden it feels like they have a whole bunch of momentum. But Fort Hays, you say the same thing for them. I mean, they got cleaned out by Angelo in the opener.
Right.
And since then, they have really been impressive. I do not know which way to go in this with, so I'm just going to go with my gut. I think Pitt State has shown just a tremendous amount of mettle these first 3 weeks of the season. They've been very resilient. They have prepared well. Their game plans have been solid. I'm going to go with the Gorillas to win this one.
Ferg, Fort Hays on the road at Pitt. What are your thoughts?
I mean, the last matchup was really, really close. I feel like every time I pick against both of them, they win. So, I mean, Somebody's got to win the game. In something like this, I look more to the defense, and I think that's where Pitt stands out for me here. I'm going to go with Pitt at home. I mean, it's as good as Fort Hays has been and resilient as well, but I think that Pitt's definitely going to be quite battle tested as well. So low scoring affair, though. I am looking to a low scoring affair.
I feel like Pitt kind of got over a little bit of a hump there in this stretch that they have. I like them at home in this game, and I want to see if they can get that offense to kind of take another step forward here. But I have them winning and pulling at 2-2 after a heck of a 4-game stretch. Now, with Tony, if he gets me any of his picks, we'll review those just so they can all kind of be on record. But let's move ahead. Arkansas Tech. This is one you didn't see coming. Against Ouachita Baptist. And Chuck, why do we have Arkansas Tech on the screen all of a sudden? They haven't been on the pick'em before that I can recall.
Well, it's a bit of a feel-good story because they're off to a 2-0 start, and their new head coach, Roy Thompson Jr., we've mentioned before, he was AFCA's assistant coach of the year last season. as a defensive coordinator at Washita. So obviously that adds some intrigue here because of his connections to the program there at Washita. That gives us maybe some confidence in picking Arkansas Tech in this game, especially since Washita had struggled and lost that opener at East Central. But I am going to go with Washita here. I'm happy for Arkansas Tech. They 2-0 is a good place for them to be. Realistically speaking, they beat the same two teams last year by roughly the same margins. Some of those Oklahoma schools they're just nowhere near where they need to be competitive in the GAC. So yeah, 2-0 is a great place to be, but it's not something that really gets my attention here. I am happy for what they've done so far. I think they're going to be a winning team this year, but I think this will still be a moment where just the more proven team will find a way to get it done. So I'm going to go with the Tigers.
Ferg, before we get to you, this is a good observation.
Agree.
For any of those who have listened to our guy Rex, we got to get him on the show sometime. I'm just going to leave it at that. But our guy James W., after not being around the show for the first week and change, but I forgot the GAC didn't start football for a week or so. But we've got some different thoughts in here. AC likes the Wonder Boys. Now, Ferg, where are you going on this?
It's southwestern and northwestern Oklahoma. I mean, the way that northwestern Oklahoma didn't even move around when they were punting the ball, and Tech went back and blocked it like 4 times. Like, I don't understand. And so you can't really take too much out of those games. I just don't think. I still like Washita. I think that it's just a big step forward, and it'll be a massive upset, but Tech would have to prove it to me.
Tony, you've come back just in time for Arkansas Tech and OBU. Who do you like here?
Yeah, I like Washita. I mean, as much as I'm thrilled for Arkansas Tech getting out 2-0 like that, the two teams that they beat are combined 141 win percentage since COVID. So I'm going with Washita on this one.
Since I have a lead, I'm going to go ahead and take Arkansas Tech here. I like what they're doing on both sides of the football. I'm not in love with what I see with the Washita offense right now, and I don't know if they're quite as good on the defensive side either. I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'll probably get blown up in the comments next week. I'll take it, but I'm going to take Arkansas Tech in this ball game. Tony, by the way, we do need your picks. We just need picks at this point. Fort Hays, Pitt State. Who you got?
Pitt
and Lenore Ryan. Okay, and did we get you on Virginia Union or no?
You did.
Okay, all good.
Johnson C. Smith. Yep.
We are now at a few games left. We got Virginia State and Winston-Salem. Winston-Salem is 2-1. Do I have that correct? Is that what we have incorrect, guys?
Yep. That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Ferg, your last, no cheating. Chuck, who do you got in this one, buddy?
I see reasons to go with the Rams here, but I'm not quite there yet. I think Virginia State is just a little bit further ahead of where the Rams are at this point. I like the Trojans here in this one. I do think it's going to be a tough one. It is a home game for Winston-Salem, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is, yeah. Tough place to play. I think the Trojans are ready for it, though, so I'm going to go Virginia State.
Tony, how do you like this one?
Yeah, two things. Number one, Virginia State's loss was on the road at FCS Norfolk in overtime. Right. So I'm a little worried just about the hangover aspect of it, but obviously they're playing with a level up team and highly competitive. And it seems like every time we have Virginia State in the pick 'em, they seem to hit the pay window. So I'm going with the Trojans as well.
Okay. I feel like Virginia State is a little bit off of our radar in terms of who's been getting the love in D2 HBCU. It's been some other names and not them, and I think that they have a real nice ball club. I'm taking Virginia State here. Ferg, this puts you in the awkward position Ferg, what do you got to lose? You're 48% right now.
Yeah, but I tell you, man, the Rams, they I gotta have some heart pills when I'm around them because
This has become a therapy session very quickly.
Yeah, they make things really, really interesting. And the one thing I think that really stands out is they are definitely giving up a lot of yards in the air. They did, against Lincoln, and that's really where VSU makes a lot of their yardage right now with Rashawn Matthews is through the air. Um, I think it will certainly be a close game, but I also really like that defensive line of Virginia State to be very disruptive to what the Rams want to do. So, as much as it pains me to say, you might as well just say it's a clean sweep, and Virginia State will win this game.
Will that be your same pick with Gaither as well?
I mean, it's going to have to be. He might think otherwise, but I mean, I just think that I really like what VSU has been able to do. And even if it gets into a kicking contest, I have no idea who will win if it gets into a kicking contest.
I would agree.
So, yeah.
Okay, we're going to move to our final game. Minnesota Duluth, 3-0, coming off of a real big win, and I get a feeling that they're going to be ranked without any issue in our top 25. I'll put it that way. And then Sioux Falls 3-0. So both clubs are 3-0 at this point in time. This one is in Sioux Falls. Last year, Sioux Falls beat them, but if I remember right, I don't think Walt Jasper played that game. So, guys, which direction are you going here? Tony, I'm starting with you first.
So this game just scares the daylights out of me just because it seems like it's so easy to think, okay, Duluth's played the tougher 3 games so far. Wall Jaspers look good and tough on top of that. This is one of those spots where Sioux Falls always seems to find a way to win a game, and you just don't think that they should be favored in it. And it's like I talked about earlier when we were talking about the Duluth Mankato game. It's just this is the spot where Northern Sun teams often follow up a great performance with an egg, where you're just like, what the hell happened there?
Sure.
I am going to stay with the Bulldogs to avoid the letdown, but it scares the crap out of me.
Coach Glow saw you wearing the matching purple shirt and was thinking you were going with the Cougars, and you swerved.
Yeah.
Ferg, where are you going on this? You can't even do a Hoffner pick here. You've got Coach Weesey against Coach Glow. Which direction are you heading?
Well, I mean, I feel like these are two teams where it's as far as their quarterbacks will let them go. I mean, because their quarterbacks are both mobile quarterbacks. I think there have been games where, Cam Dean for Sioux Falls has been the leading rusher in addition to, passing the ball. So, and we already know what Wall Jasper could do. But
right.
I think that the X factor is likely to be Duluth's defense and the ability to stop the run. And for that, I'm going to take the Bulldogs as well.
I think that's a good point, Chris, is you saw how well they defended Mankato. And Sioux Falls does some of the similar things that Mankato likes to do in the +1 run game with the quarterback and whatnot. So, I mean, there's nothing, no doubt about it. Duluth was very impressive last week. Chuck, which direction are you going here?
Well, I think everything that Tony said just in general about the environment of the NSIC is spot on. And this feels like it's one of those times where Duluth coming off a big win is now going to take a loss. I'm going to go with Sioux Falls in this game, guys. I'm going to put a little faith behind them. I think what worries me with that pick is the Sioux Falls defense matched up against the Bulldogs offense. That's where I'm concerned. I think Sioux Falls will score some points. They're one of the best offenses in the league. Probably are the best offense. I know Moorhead has some bigger, more eye-popping stats, but Sioux Falls might be the best offense in this league. We know Duluth is the best defense in this league. I think Sioux Falls will have some success. I think they've got enough diversity that they can kind of keep Duluth guessing a little bit. I am worried that they're going to have to come up with some stops and possibly not be able to do it. But with it being at home, I'm going to go with the coup.
I think this is once again a really hard game to call. Now, before the season, just to be real clear, I had Sioux Falls as the second best team in the Northern Sun after Mankato. I had Duluth third. Sioux Falls has done nothing to make me waver from where I thought they have been and where they're going. I thought last week was a big step forward in the way they really hammered Bemidji at home, which teams don't go there and win like that. Now, that said, Duluth and their defense, as everyone has talked about, yeah, I mean, what they did to Mankato and holding them under 300 yards makes this game really difficult. Chuck, I have that same concern about the Sioux Falls defense. I think their offense is very diverse, but I'm going to take Sioux Falls in this one at home in what should be a really good contest.
All right. Well, that gets us through the pick'em, and that gets us through the program, and we are running a little bit long tonight, guys. So there were a few questions that I had starred. We're actually going to bypass those tonight, guys. We do need to move this along. But Whit, before we bring the show to a close, how about a shout out for a former D2 player?
No doubt. Trinidad Chambliss, we got to see about early yesterday morning on the Twitter machine. It mentioned that he was going to get the start. And he had a great game, and you know, both running the ball and throwing it, and Ole Miss with a win over Arkansas in a game that was on ESPN and kind of Saturday night prime time. And really, really great to see him, you know, have that kind of contest. And for those who are thinking, are we going to do a segment each time on guys who have moved on up and done well? It's a little different when you're doing it as the quarterback for Ole Miss. Let's be real honest. This was I thought they mentioned so many times when I was watching it, kind of this guy that came on up, and they really surprised the coaches. And the funny thing about it is, I don't think he surprised any of us.
Right.
You know, we know how smooth he's looked as a quarterback and what a weapon he was, and how he moved Ferris State really to a whole nother level. And kudos to him. Really great performance.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, there were a few questions that I had starred Whit for us to get to, but we're running a little bit long tonight, so we'll hold some of those questions, possibly get to them in future shows, and I think we probably answered a handful of them throughout our dialogue. So since we are running a little bit long, we will call that a show for tonight. We'll be back again next week for the same deal. Remember to check the website throughout the week. Of course, we talked about the other podcasts. We've got columns for most of the leagues that'll drop. So be sure you're visiting D2Football.com every day for all the latest news and all of the latest columns and podcasts. And we will look forward to seeing you back here next Sunday night.